This is the area review for the area quiz in Module 5. First question says to measure the rectangle with your inch ruler. I need to make sure that I pay attention that it is the inch side of my ruler and that I label the dimensions. Then I need to find the area. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my length, and when I measure my length, I see that I end up with 3 and 10/16. I don't want to leave it like that. I want to simplify it so I can divide them both by 2. So I end up with 3 and 5/8, and I want to make sure that I label it with inches because it is inches. Next, I'm going to measure my width, and when I measure my width, I get 1 and 8/16, which is the same thing. When I simplify and divide them both by 8, I get 1 and 1/2 inches. So now I've labeled the dimensions of my length and my width, and I need to find the area. In order to find the area, I know that area equals length times width. So area equals 3 and 5/8 times 1 and 1/2. The next thing that I need to do is I need to turn these into improper fractions. So 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 5 is 29, and I end up with 29/8. Then I do 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3, and I have 3/2. I'm going to multiply. I have to do 29 times 3, and when I do 29 times 3, I get 87. And 8 times 2 is 16. Then I have to do 87 divided by 16. That's what this means over here, 87 divided by 16. And when I do 87 divided by 16, I first have to see how many times can 16 go into 87. And I know that 16 can go into 87 5 times. It goes in 5 times, which gets me to 80, so then there's 7 left over, and it's 5 and 7/16. And my unit should be square inches. So I can write SQ and then inches is IN. Or another way, just so you can all see it, I can write inches with a 2 above it over here. That also means square inches. So the answer is 5 and 7/16 square inches, and that is my area. That is question 1. Question 2, I need to find the area of these rectangles, so all I'm doing is multiplying. So I have 6/5 times 13/5. And when I multiply these two numbers, because area equals length times width, I see that I end up over here with 78/25, which I can't leave that way. So because I can't leave it that way, I know 78 divided by 25. 25 can go in there 3 times, which will give me 75. And then 3 are left over out of the 25. And it's millimeters squared. Next over here, we have 6.5 times 17/3. That's how I do length times width. I'm going to turn it into improper fractions on this case, so we have 13/2 times 17/3. If I need help doing the 13 times 17, I go on the side and I do 13 times 17, and I don't erase my work. I leave it so that it's shown, and I end up with 221/6. So now I have to divide 221 divided by 6 to get a mixed number, and I know that I can do the division over here. So I'm going to do that so it's easier for me to see what my answers would be. So I know that it goes in 3 times. And I know it goes in 6 times. And then I see that there's a remainder of 5. So then my answer over here, I'm going to carry it down so that I have some more room, would be 36 and 5/6 kilometers squared. So now we've found the area of those two rectangles. And the last question on our review This one is a word problem we have to read through carefully. It says wheatgrass is grown in planters and that the planters are 2 1/3 inch by 1 1/2 inch. So we're going to start by finding the area of that. So we're going to take the area, which is, so it's 2 1/3 inch times 1 1/2 inch. I'm going to make them improper fractions. So we have 7/3 times 3/2, and we end up with 21/6. And 21/6 is the same as 3 3/6, which is the same as 3 1/2. So each planter is 3 1/2 square inches. But the question's not asking about that. It then says if there is a 4 by 4 array of these planters. So that means I'm going to take these planters and it's going to be set up in a box like this, because it says that there is no space between them. So there's no space, and they want to know the area covered by all of the planters. So here's my 4 by 4 array, and if I look at my 4 by 4 array over here, or I multiply 4 by 4, I see that there are 16 planters. So I have 16 planters, and each of them has an area of 3 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 16 and multiply it by 3 1/2 to see the area of the whole entire thing. In order to do that, once again, I need to change things into improper fractions. So it's 7/2 I see. So now I'm going to multiply 16 times 7 to start. And I'm going to end up with 112 halves. And when I turn that back into a mixed number, I end up with 56. I'm going to put that down here because there's no more room. And so my area of the whole entire thing is 56 square inches. And that's the review for the area quiz.